So, guys, second part of this show. And we're going to talk about a very important topic. And this topic is the new German Startup Association. Because here with me are Erik and Christoph. And Erik, I mean, can I say Erik or should I say Erik Heinelt?
Erik, please.
Erik, okay, Erik. So Erik is CEO at Tirendo, but also board member at this German Startup Association. Christoph is the founder of the Berlin Startup Academy. And Christoph, what it is exactly that you do?
I'm leading Berlin's most beautiful, most effective, quickest and most elegant accelerator program that is not only made for founders but also for corporates to learn how it is to start a digital business.
Yes, and Christoph is also one of the most modest people in Berlin, as you can hear. Yes. Erik, can you tell us something about, because you're having the international portfolio, right, of the German Startup Association? So can you tell us a little bit more about that? Why did you do that? What's the aim of being an international spokesperson?
I think it's actually two things, right? So first is that, of course, in the beginning we are mainly focused on working for the German startups, yeah. But in a second step, of course, we also want to bring that to European level, later on also to international level.
Okay.
But I mean, also international is kind of important because when you look at the German startup scene right now, you not only see like German startups, but you also see a lot of international startups, and they of course should also participate there.
Yeah, okay, I understand. So it's really connecting to not only the German scene, but also from Berlin to actually the whole world.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah. So what we're talking about tonight is a topic that, I mean, inspired Christoph, at least, to write a lot of posts on the Berlin Startups group on Facebook, where he actually said, okay, now we have this German Startup Association, which states that we're talking on behalf of German startups. But who are they? I never got a letter. So, Christoph, can you tell us exactly what is the problem that you have with the German Startup Association?
Well, quite obviously, if you start a startup and, for example, if you bake great cookies, it's totally okay if you go out there and say, hey, we do the best cookies in the world. You don't need to ask anyone. It's just what you claim that you do. However, if you start an association and you claim to represent other people, you can't do it that way. You just can't just go out there and say, hey, I all of a sudden represent a huge group, a huge industry. You know, I couldn't just go out there and say, hey, I represent Friday@6 now just because I claim that I do. For that, you need a mandate. You need to ask people for legitimation. You know, you first need to build a basis, and you need to see if there's really a demand, if there's really people who want you to represent them before you can go out there and claim to do that. And that is something that I thought when I read about and heard about the German Startup Association. I was asking myself, so who has given them this mandate? I wasn't asked. Nobody I know was asked. Still, they go out there, and one of the guys has already done a business trip with our economics minister, claiming to represent the people like me.
Okay. So, what is the legitimacy of the German Startup Association? That's the question that Christoph basically asked. So, Erik, what is the answer?
Yeah, I think, let me start with the following story. I think when we actually started, it was in summer last year. Yeah, we were sitting basically together, and we saw that there was some laws that were actually, in discussion in the parliament, and where we as founders just did not agree with. Yeah, and I mean we were sitting a lot, on over a beer, and actually were complaining about it, and we sort of like felt that there was a lot of energy created, but this energy had no impact. Yeah, because we were sitting there drinking more beer. Yeah, and then at the end of the day we went. Home, and on the next day, I mean, we were back in the office, focusing on daily business again. So nothing really changed.
Something had to happen. There was a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That was the problem. And I mean, we are entrepreneurs. Yeah, and how do you do things there? I mean, you start. Yeah, you get things started, And of course, you also, or we also have a more bold approach. Yeah,
More bold, right? Yeah,
that's
no,
for sure.
I would say it's almost it's not typical German to be that bold, right? It's a statement.
Well, kind of. I think it's still bold understatement. I would call it. Yeah.
But answer. I mean, the question that Christoph asks is, why do you state that you represent all startups? That I mean, that there is a problem. We can talk about that later. But why do you state it like that?
No, I think when we look at what we achieved so far, yeah, I mean, we have over 60 members now. I mean, it's a lot of actually well-known startups. We get hundreds of emails every day where people actually claim support for us. Also some critical voices from time to time.
Yeah.
But I think, I would say 95% of it is support. People say, well, I'm glad that you're actually doing that.
Yeah. But I mean, let's stick to the facts.
Yeah.
So you say, okay, 60 members. There are around, I think, a safe number is 500 startups in Berlin, right? So, I mean, that doesn't relate, right? 60 members having 500 startups.
Well, I think the numbers are growing quickly, right? So we got a lot of applications every day.
Okay, that's the entrepreneurial talk, but it is about the claim. Having 60 or 500 and then...
Okay, but I mean, actually it's twofold, right? So how should it work otherwise, right? We cannot go to every startup or ask everybody, do you perceive yourself as a startup? Yeah, and say, okay, we have the following positions. Do you agree with all these positions? And when we have, all check boxes ticked, actually start
Okay.
yeah?
But then another point. SoundCloud, Wooga, Zalando are all not members. So you don't have the numbers, but you also don't have the big ones.
Well, let's say we don't have them yet. Yeah? We have others like Trivago, eDarling, Lieferheld, Wunderkinder, Airbnb. We have Facebook and Google as sustaining members or startup alumni. Yeah, and I think these companies, I just named a few, represent but a bit of the German entrepreneurial scene, I would say.
Yeah. So Christoph, I mean, he has a point. You have to start somewhere, right?
No, you're totally right. And fundamentally, if you see a problem, it's a good idea to just start acting about it instead of just waiting around for someone else to solve the problem. However, in a democratic society, again, it's about the mandate. All this, like just going about...
because it's not a typical startup, it's not a company, it's an association.
It's an association, exactly. And like the proper way, I would have thought, is like first go out there and establish that there is a problem, that people want you to represent them, that you have something like a mandate, that you first talk to founders, to protagonists in the system, and then go out there and say, hey, based on the mandate of these guys, we're developing a program, and these are the programs that we want to solve. And
it's not just that you were offended that you weren't asked, right?
Of course. Oh,
a
Dirk,
little
you're
bit,
so great.
maybe?
No, but these are obvious questions, Dirk. Were you asked? Tell me, were you asked?
No, but I'm a totally irrelevant person in the whole startup scene, and yet you might
so
think differently.
I am. So am I.
Oh, okay. Well, then we have that straight. I mean, no, but the point, of course, is what will be the next steps? What is now the agenda? Because, of course, it's also a debate, okay, we have 60 or 500, we don't have the big ones. They just started out, right? But what is, of course, way more important is what they're going to achieve. So what are the first two big topics that you want to lobby in Berlin here in the parliament?
I think there was one topic that actually started out last summer. Yeah, that's the so-called anti-angel law. I don't think I have to go into that in more detail. But that was actually something when, out of the blue, it hit the startup scene out of the blue, so to say. And then there was a lot of moaning and groaning about it. And
because can you explain a little bit about what this part of the law is?
Yeah. So far, actually, there is a tax benefit for investors who invest with a corporation, so like a GmbH, in a startup. Yeah, if it's a German, a German corporate, and then they have a tax benefit when it comes to an exit. And I think that's something pretty fair for investors, actually, because they take the risk, they invest in high-risk businesses. Yeah, so there's a bit of an advantage they have.
Angel money was in danger, basically.
No, I mean, yeah, exactly, and their willingness to invest in new startups, right? and it was something that came from Brussels, right? That they say, okay, that's sort of like discrimination of foreign investors, and you have to do something about it. And either, you know, you can remove this of like law that all get a tax benefit, or nobody gets the tax benefit. And of course, the finance ministry took, okay, let's get more taxes, and they filed for the second one. And then actually we sort of all took ownership in this, and we started to talk to politicians, you know, from different parties, from different factions. And what was actually most surprising for me was that most of them weren't really aware of the harm that it's doing, yeah. And this was also, I mean, we really noticed that, okay, I mean, nobody talks to them, right? Maybe we have not all behind us, yeah, but this is something which we know affects a lot, yeah, and let's just do something about this, right? And we started to talk about them, and I mean, and they were also very thankful that they had somebody with some, you know, background in this industry that actually started to talk to them, because when they sort of like, you know, wanted to call somebody and ask, okay, what do you think about that? They just often had nobody in the telephone book. Yeah?
Yeah. So, Christoph, to finalize this interview, this is, of course, you know, a very fair point. If they don't have anyone to talk to, you know, they also don't know what is happening. So, would you agree then, in the end, that, okay, it's not that bad, you know, the way they've handled it is just about the result?
Of course I would, because I know for a fact that these guys are already working on an agenda. They're already working on putting out questions for people to engage on. They're already recruiting more members. They're already working on making this more relevant. So there's absolutely doubt.
You will become a member yourself?
Maybe, but that's more like a question of, can I invest the time, Dirk? Because I'm running my own business.
No, you can
so
just transfer money and let them do the work, right?
That's right, but do I have more money or more time? That's something that all of us have to answer individually.
Okay, okay. What I want to ask you, Erik, is about Tirendo. How's it going with Tirendo? Because you have Sebastian Vettel as your marketing employee. I wrote on Facebook. That's, of course, like a little bit the other way around. But how's it going with the business?
Oh, it's going very well, yeah. I mean, you mentioned we have Sebastian Vettel as brand ambassador. We're really proud about that. I think nobody could represent our business any better. And we're just starting the new summer tire season. When you look outside of the window, it doesn't feel like that, but it's coming very soon. Yeah, so we are all bullish on the new year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, being part of Project A, yourself also ex-Rocket, but started by also ex-Rocket managing director and, you know, the people around him. How's it going with Project A? Because I have kind of the idea that they're having the approach of just being silent, not attracting too much attention, and just do the work and, you know, get the results.
Absolutely, I think this is the right approach, right? Because whenever you start something new, there's a lot of work to do, yeah. And every minute that you go out talking, except for Friday night, yeah, distracts you from doing business, yeah? And I mean, doing business is what you have to do if you start something, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, and with Tirendo, can you name some of the steps that you were going to have this year? So, what do we have to pay attention to?
I think I was a bit late, yeah, because we just started Switzerland 2 hours ago, yeah. Okay. We're gonna further internationalize the business and also extend our assortment, yeah, from like mainly tires right now towards all things that you need in the automotive after-sales market.
Yeah. So, because I mean, the tire business, you know, it's so you never think about that could be also possible online. Have you encountered like really big surprises in this first period where you thought, oh my God, why didn't anybody else start this before? Because the margins are so high and the structures, you know, people go to garages without thinking.
Well, I mean, it's always when you start, right? And you look at a market that you enter, yeah? There are some surprises, some to the good, some to the bad, yeah? I think most of them actually were to the good, yeah? And no, it's a highly attractive market. It's like over 50 million tires are sold in the after-sales market every year, and only 8% of them are online right now. I mean, that's also why we're doing TV, because a lot of people are just don't aware that they can actually buy it online and that they can save up to 30% with it, and that the whole process is actually more convenient than going to a local garage.
Can you already reveal a little bit how much, how much the 8 has gone up? Have you gained some percentages of the market already?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think also when we talk to suppliers, everybody's like really, welcomes us with open arms. Yeah, and I mean we see our numbers. Yeah, so yeah.
Now the reason why I'm laughing is because, of course, with this week with Living Social, who are also like doing these daily deals with going to people who are really not used to this online model, trying to convince them. Some people say it's basically that, going to these shop owners and trying to convince them to do something online.
Sorry, I'm not sure if I got the question correctly.
Well, is it still true that people, that these shop owners, we live in a time with a lot of insecurity, that they want to try out something new, something online, even the shop owners which sell tires?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they also have to adapt to the new times, right? And the buying habits of people change. And I think that's the smartest thing they can do to adapt. That, I mean, I would say quite a few still struggle with that because it's something new. I mean, many of them are in their business for decades. That's always, for us people in the startup scene, difficult to imagine because we were often not even born, when they started their business. And many of them have been successful over the last years, but I think the wise ones, they definitely adapt to these new trends.
Yeah, last question. Does television advertisement work for you also in the long run? Do you see the traffic and that they know your name significantly? Is it significantly higher than before?
I mean, we start with TV advertising again next week. Yeah, so the sys admins today, they were switching a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of course, yeah. I mean, as soon as you have the
it
spot,
is worth
you can
the money.
Yeah. You can actually see how the traffic goes up. Yeah, and also how people convert later.
Thank you so much, Erik. So, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Erik Heinelt and Christoph Raethke. And I think that Christoph will eventually become a member, but he just needs some time, to get used to this new idea of the German Startup Association. So, it's time for the second song.